Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. My name is Paul Atherley. I'm the Managing Director of Berkeley Energia, and we're building the only uranium mine in the world in construction today. We think we're in a cyclical business. We think the best time to be building a mine, pouring concrete, is the bottom of the cycle. We think we're absolutely at the bottom of a 12-year cycle for the uranium price. We're sitting here with the uranium price about $25 a pound. It's come down from $130 a pound. It's a significant mine. It's not small. This will be a top 10 producer. We'll produce 4.5 million pounds a year, and we're up there with Rio Tinto and BHP. It's extremely profitable even at the bottom of the cycle. So we've got this ability to build the mine for a very small amount of capital cost. It's around $100 million. We can produce uranium at $15 a pound. So here we are at the bottom of the cycle. Uranium price $25 a pound. We produce at 15. So even at the bottom of the cycle, we make very, very strong cash flow. You can say, why? Why can we build a mine at the bottom of the cycle and be extremely cash flow positive? Two reasons. One is the ore body is very, very close to surface and extremely high grade, good metallurgy, easy to get out. And secondly, is you've paid for it. Basically, Spain over the last decade has drawn down money from the European Union and put in infrastructure. That infrastructure has made our capital costs $150 million lower than it would have been had we not had that infrastructure. We also have very, very strong local demand for this mine. We're going to create 450 direct jobs, 2,000 indirect jobs in a region of Spain that last year lost 25,000 people, walked away from this province, left empty houses. It's the first time I've ever experienced intergenerational unemployment. Walk into a local bar, gentleman approaches me, starts talking to me, he's about my age, speaks good English, well educated, speaks to me about his 19-year-old son who's applying for a job on our mine. As the conversation wears on, I find out he's applying for the same job. So it's not just 50% youth unemployment, it is intergenerational unemployment. And in the village next door to the mine, notional population 600, real population, that is people who are left, only 400, 104 people out of that 400 have put in fully documented jobs for the mine, applications for jobs. So we're doing everything we can to be a good neighbor, a good business partner. We do everything. We sponsor, we do all those things you would expect. We've even installed free Wi-Fi in the villages. These guys need help. We're starting off with about 10 to 14 years mine life, but I'm suggesting to you we're in an area of considerable geological endowment. And as I've said to my guys, as long as we're reinvesting every year in exploration, we will always have a profile looking like that. So we expect to be around not 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We expect to unlock that geological endowment over a very long period of time. And I've put up here the cash flows from the least positive of the analysts. This is Ben Davis from Liberum. He's not our biggest fan, but he says reluctantly he accepts that we'll generate very, very strong cash flows from this mine. One of the reasons we're really excited is, although the uranium price is at the bottom of the cycle, we can see right now, coming out of this, the biggest deficit the world has seen. You all know the China story there. They're spending $500 billion, half a trillion, on currently building 25 reactors, rolling them out. Give you an example is a reactor used to take 12 years to build and commission, now it takes 5 years. A reactor now costs half to build and operate what it did before. And the next time you go to Hong Kong, just give a thought to this. There are currently 9 nuclear reactors within 1 hour of Hong Kong. They're building another 5. So the way China is going to solve its environmental problem is not with renewables. Yes, it'll do lots of renewables, but it's mainly nuclear. And to give you some quantum, to meet the 2020 carbon targets, they've got to double the number of reactors. To meet the 2050 carbon targets, they've got to double again. Everybody knows about Fukushima. Everyone knows the story. Fukushima hit, tragedy on the east coast of Japan, and they turned off all their reactors. What you probably don't know is by the end of this year, they'll have turned back on 17 reactors, and the following year will be 26. So those 57 reactors, excluding Fukushima, are all being turned back on. And this comes against the time when all the existing reactors in the world, the main ones, 350 in Europe and the US, their uranium supply is coming off contract. So as we speak today, they're all full up. They've all got the uranium contracts, they're full. But within 5 years, you're in the way of the camera there, David. Within 5 years, they'll be down to 20%. So we know that every single reactor in the US and the European Union has to recontract. And what's really exciting about that is currently 2/3 of the demand for uranium, basically to those EU and US reactors, comes from OECD. But 3/4 of the supply comes from non-OECD. So when you turn the light on, and it's EDF supplying you, it's Mr. Putin at the other end of that line, or it might be from Kazakhstan, or even more shockingly, from Niger. So 60% of the European Union's supply of uranium comes from those three countries. What the Americans and Europeans are saying to us, and that's why they're contracting with us, we want to diversify away from Kazakhstan, Niger, and Mr. Putin, and they're doing contracts with us. We're in, and I'm taking it up to the business level now, it doesn't matter what business you're in, whether it be property, whether it be another gold stock, whatever it is, it's cyclical in the sense that when you have an oversupply, which is what we've had when the Japanese reactors were turned off, is basically you've seen the uranium price fall over this 12-year period. What happens when the uranium price goes low? You get capacity being shut in. And that's a great sign. Supply-side destruction is what we want. So we've had Cameco shutting. We've had Langer Heinrich shutting. We've got Paladin reducing production. But the biggest one and the best one just happened earlier this year. The world's biggest supplier, 43% of all uranium in the world comes from one supplier, one country, Kazakhstan. They've just announced a 10% cut. And then the thing you want on the other side is the demand kicking in. I just mentioned before all those reactors in the US and the EU kicking in demand. So we've got this wonderful turning point where you've got supply-side destruction being met by the biggest demand the world has ever seen kicking in. We took this story to the generalist institutions in London in November last year, and that was the month when the uranium price hit the 12-year low. It was $17.50 a pound, absolutely rock bottom. We were massively oversubscribed. We needed $15 million. We went to the biggest and best names in town. We got our arms torn off. We took 30. We could have taken $50 million. So now our register has come up to the point where we're dominated by the biggest and best funds that you guys know. Part of it is because we've been able to tell the story, hopefully, very simply, in a way that a generalist can understand. It's not a geologist telling you a story here, it's somebody who wants to make money. I'm only in this with these investors to say to you, invest with me, we'll build this mine at the bottom of the cycle, and we believe the demand will drive the price in the future. So we're building now, pouring concrete at the bottom of the cycle, looking to deliver into the biggest demand deficit the world has seen. And I hope that spiked your interest and you can come along and join us along the way. So thank you very much for your time. Very happy to take any questions if anybody has some questions.
Did Kazakhstan announce the cutback in production because of the low price?
Yes.
That's the only reason they...
Yeah, no, very good question. The question was, did Kazakhstan cut because of the low price? They made it very, very clear they saw no point in producing uranium and making no money. So they're clearly not making any money. So that tells you you're the bottom of the world cost curve. If the biggest producer, the lowest cost producer, can't make any money and he shuts down, that's the best possible reason. So he's saying we're going to hold back 10% and sell it at a later date when we can make more money. So they're taking a very big positive bet on the future.
Do you have any idea of his price?
The question is, do I have any idea about the Kazakhstan's production price? We think it ranges between 15 and low 20s. So we're near the bottom of where their bottom producer. They have about 15 joint ventures in Kazakhstan, but we think their total cost is around $15 a pound to about $20 a pound.
Well, your stock has come off 20% in the last month, and there's been some speculation in the Spanish press that other that you're agreeing to work on nuclear in Spain with hydrogen.
Yes, the question is from a respected journalist in the audience asking, there's been some media speculation in the Spanish press about our ability to make the project go ahead. This is largely from the anti-nuclear lobby, who have been quite vociferous in the press, and many shareholders have picked up on here. Just to answer specifically about the share price fall, there's two reasons. One is that, and I'll answer that. The other one is we've had some institutional selling. BlackRock announced that they were selling stock, but we're very, very pleased that that's gone into the hands of some other institutions. So the institutional selling is simply from one institution to another. In respect of the point you're making, all I can say is that it's green nonsense, where operations are going on site as per normal. They're going ahead extremely well. And I think it falls on us to make an announcement to shareholders, and we're currently preparing one. So we'll have a brief out for shareholders, hopefully in the middle of next week. It's currently being drafted, which will address that question and hopefully will reassure investors that there is absolutely no issue about this. This is just media noise from people who are anti-nuclear, and we're getting on with the job of building a mine that's going to create 2,500 jobs and rejuvenate a local community.
Tell us more about the completion of funding. There's a funding exercise.
A very good question. The question is, where are we at with our funding? We recently raised, as I mentioned, $30 million, so we have approximately $30 million US dollars in the bank, and we have, as I've mentioned, approximately $100 million capital event. And we've announced a couple of times in our announcements we're looking to do what we call a strategic investor, and that can be an equity investor or an investor in the asset or both. And then we'll wrap around that what we call soft debt. Not project, we won't be doing project finance, but equally we won't be smashing the stock to pieces with lots and lots of debt issuance. So we're, as you can tell, we're very driven by driving returns to the equity side of the equation, but we're not going to do it by massively gearing the company. We've got to get that fine balance between the two. So I'd suggest to you the current thinking is a strategic for a certain amount, and then the balance will be some form of soft debt. And as I say, we've tried to articulate that in our announcements. And that's underway, and we'd expect to have that, as we've done with all our fundings, well in place before we need that money. Really good question. Given there's a very obvious bigger demand out there coming, the question is, how will supply respond? I can tell you as a miner, and all the other miners and managing directors in the room tell you, it is frankly bloody difficult to bring a mine on stream. So we're pouring concrete now right at the bottom of the cycle. I can tell you all those other mines sitting in the wings, we've taken us a decade to get here. They've got a long way to go to catch up where we are now. If you're not pouring concrete now, you're not going to catch that wave. Very, very good question. The question was, are we free to sell outside the European Union? The answer is no, we're not. We have to get what's called Euratom approval, and I'm very pleased to say we just announced that we have that. So for each deal that we do, each transaction with each utility or each trading house, we go to this agency called Euratom, and they approve the transaction. So we have to get approval. And they are incredibly supportive of us. They made a very positive statement saying this is a very, very important project for Europe. To give you some idea, the European Union has 140 nuclear reactors. It basically has no domestic supply. 60% of the supply of these reactors comes from Mr. Putin, Kazakhstan, and Niger. So we come along and be a supplier from the heart of the European Union, Euratom, European Union, everybody wants us to get up.
When does your plant reach maximum production?
The question is about our ramp up. We will be producing we're commissioning towards the end of next year. That's been the number. That's the date we've held firm for some time now. But the ramp up will be during 2019. So I think in one of the charts we showed this. You can see this ramp up here. So 2019, 2020. So the 4.4, this is the cash flow. So you can see here 2020, 2021. So the notional 4.4 million pounds, we exceed it in 2021. Thank you for that. I'd forgotten that whole point. Yes, we've got such a big area, and we did announce it, so thank you for that, is we've got hundreds of square kilometers of an incredibly prospective piece of uranium ground. This is historical uranium mining area. We've tapped into an incredibly small area. The Zona 7 ore body, the ore body I showed you on there, it starts 4 meters below the surface, is the size of a car park. It's tiny. So of that hundreds of square kilometers, whilst we're in the construction phase, we're not going to get round to doing that much exploration. So as we announced, we are in discussion with very large companies looking to joint venture into our ground to try and unlock that. So thank you for that. I'm being waved off stage at this point, so thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that.